Alright, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about UFC 276, Israel Adesanya versus Jader Cannonier, with the co-main event being Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. Fantastic card. Just wanted to start off by saying I've been off for a while. Apologize about that. But now we're back. Now we're rejuvenated. Had to figure some shit out with my life. That's just nothing you guys need to worry about. You guys are here to talk about fights and listen to me talk about fights. So let's get into it. Number one fight on the card is Jessica Rose Clark versus Julia Stoliarenko. You know, not the best fight. To be quite honest with you, it's at women's bantamweight. Jessica Rose Clark hasn't had the best career in the UFC. She looked promising for a point, but she's been dealing with a lot of injuries and a lot of woes. Stoliarenko, with all due respect, I honestly believe she does not belong in the UFC. I don't think she's that great of a fighter, and you can tell by her record. She's 9-6. Just Rose Clark, not that much better either, 11-7. But with that being said, I think Jessica Rose Clark is the more well-rounded fighter. I believe she moved her camp to American Top Team to improve her grappling and her wrestling. So I believe we're going to see that on full display on Saturday. So I'm going to go with Jessica Rose Clark by unanimous decision, 30-27. And Stoliarenko is going to get her walking papers, and she's going to get cut by the UFC, sadly. But Rose Clark is going to have I believe, an okay performance. I don't think it's going to blow anyone's hair back, but Jessica Rose Clark is always pretty fun to watch. When she brings it, it is quite entertaining. So turn on your TVs at 5:30 to tune in Central Time. All right, next up, another ladies' fight. This one taking place at flyweight. Jessica Eye versus Macy Barber. This is actually a pretty good women's fight. I believe that Macy Barber is, at a point she was a really good prospect. She did have a hiccup with her 2 losses back-to-back with Roxanne Modafferi. That was on the main card. Excuse me, I believe that was the headlining prelims card of Cerrone versus McGregor. That is the fight where she blew her ACL out, and she was off for over a year, and then she came back against Alexa Grasso. She got pieced up there. She didn't look great. Honestly, she probably should have lost the Miranda Maverick fight. I thought that was one of the most egregious robberies of 2021, but she came back and looked great against Montana De La Rosa, who I believe is truly underrated. And she looked like what we were expecting to see from the beginning, in her first 2 fights, that she kind of just bulldozed these chicks. And she did the same thing with Montana De La Rosa. She honestly made it look easy, and I believe she's going to do the same with Jessica Eye. Jessica Eye had a really good record coming into the UFC way back in the day. She's been with the UFC for 8 years. She came in at 9-1, but right now her record is 15-10. That's not something that that's good. That's not something that you want to see out of some of these fighters. Obviously, women's divisions are different. It's still very young. It's still very up and coming. So you're going to get some of these very outlandish records, to put it mildly. She hasn't won a fight in quite some time. Her last win was against Viviane Araújo back in 2019. A decent win. It's actually aged really well. But in the UFC, she's coming off a 3-fight losing streak. She lost to Cynthia Calvillo, she lost to Joanne Wood, and she lost to Jennifer Maia. All by decision. She's not getting utterly smoked out there, but, she's not looking good, to be quite honest. And she's not in her prime anymore. She's 35 years old. That's not good. Macy Barber is still so young. She's only 24, and she just turned 24 last month in May. So, it's kind of hard to pick against Macy Barber. Everything leans towards her, and I believe we're gonna see Macy Barber get a number by her name on Saturday. I think she's gonna beat Jessica Eye, and I think Jessica is gonna get her walking papers as well. Kind of sucks because Jessica has been a staple around for a while, and she does bring it. I was never really the biggest fan of her personality, to be quite honest with you, but there were times where she did bring exciting fights. She was tough, and a lot of people would have not come back after her getting nearly decapitated by Valentina Shevchenko. But I'm going to go with Macy Barber by unanimous decision, 30-27. All right, moving up. Uriah Hall versus Andre Muniz. This is when you have a stacked card, when you have top 15 middleweights on the early prelims. That's when you have a fantastic card. But Uriah Hall, Andre Muniz, Uriah Hall, for those of you guys who don't know, that name doesn't ring a bell. He was the guy that did a spinning back kick to the head back on The Ultimate Fighter, the one where John Jones and Chael Sonnen were coaching at. He's been with the company for a while. He's had his ups and downs. He was the kind of guy that, you never really saw him hit his peak. He just had flashes in the pan, when he knocked out Gegard Moisasi, when he knocked out Christoph Jocko, and wins like that. And like his comeback win against Bevon Lewis. That win hasn't aged that well because he was getting pieced up, and he just had a third-round KO that came out of nowhere. And then Bevon Lewis just really lost 3 in a row after that, and, that guy's completely irrelevant now. Uriah Hall, last fight lost to Sean Strickland. No shame in that. Sean Strickland is a very bad stylistic matchup for him, and that kind of showed. But, I think it's also going to be a rough night again for Mr. Hall against Andre Muniz. Andre Muniz, 22-4, BJJ wizard on the ground. I mean, this guy tapped Ronaldo Jacare Souza, arguably one of the greatest BJJ practitioners that's competed in mixed martial arts. He armbarred him. He broke his arm. He did an inverted armbar and broke it, snapped it, and you can hear that pop with a full crowd. It was crazy. It was honestly kind of sad to see because Jacare was such a legend. And then following that, he tapped Eric Anders with an armbar. So this guy's undefeated in the UFC. He's 4-0 in the UFC. Came in from the Contender Series. You can arguably say it's 5-0 because they fought at the Apex. Actually 6-0 because he fought twice on the Contender Series. So almost 6-0 in the UFC. He's coming out on top. He's having great wins. He hasn't lost since 2016. Yeah, he got KO'd, but he fought a guy who's also in the UFC now, and is fucking shit up himself. So you look back at his loss, you think it's like, all right, it looks like he just lost to some scrub. No, that guy's in the UFC as well, and that guy's fucking shit up in the light heavyweight division right now. So I think Andre Muniz is going to finish Uriah Hall with a submission. I believe it's going to be the second round. I think he might do it with either an armbar or a rear naked choke. I think he's going to get either he won't be able to get Uriah Hall down. He's going to push him against the fence. Going to try to take his back, get on full back, try to drag him to the ground, get underhooks in, get the body triangle, and then wrap up that RNC. Or I could even see him pulling guard. Even pulling guard and going for that armbar. Because he got it against Jacare and Eric Anders. I can see him trying to do that again. I can see him being extremely confident in his jiu-jitsu, and you're going to try to get Uriah Hall out of there ASAP. Muniz likes to get those bonuses. He said it in his last fight, and the fight before that he wants to get that bonus. He was asking Dana 50 G's. So I think he's going to try to do that again. And I think we're going to have a up-and-coming contender on our hands, and that makes me really happy because the middleweight division needs it. Moving on. Brad Tavares versus Dricus du Plessis. Another top 15 middleweight fight that is just, chef's kiss, honestly. Brad Tavares, personally, one of the most underrated guys in the UFC, in my opinion. 19-6, only lost to the best of the best. Lost to Yoel Romero, lost to Robert Whittaker, lost to Israel Adesanya. The only one that sticks out there that's like, dang, you probably shouldn't have lost that one, was to Edmund Shabazian and Tim Boetsch. The Tim Boetsch one, he was fighting in Tim Boetsch's backyard, and it was a second-round TKO loss. But honestly, Brad Tavares was piecing his ass up easily. He was working him. He was making it look easy, and then Tim Boetsch just had that comeback win. Tim Boetsch had that kind of hard back in 2014. But right now he's on a 2-fight win streak over Omari Akhmedov and Antonio Carlos Jr. Good wins, especially that Akhmedov win. That Akhmedov win is looking fantastic right now. Yeah, Akhmedov got cut by the UFC, but right now he is in PFL. He's won 2 fights in a row, and I think he's number 1 in the playoff rankings right now for the light heavyweight division. Won by first round KO over a UFC vet, and finished another gentleman via arm triangle in the second round. So, beating Omari Akhmedov looks really good right now, and I'm surprised it was a split decision win. I thought he won it quite easily, 30-27. Akhmedov couldn't get his fucking takedowns down. He was getting chewed up. His leg was getting chewed up. He was getting pieced up. He couldn't get any takedowns. Brad Tavares showed amazing flexibility. It was kind of like Armin Saryukin-esque from his fight against Gamrot last week. That's how good he looked defending those takedowns early. And that's impressive when you're fighting these Dagestani guys. They're known for their wrestling, they're known for their grappling, and when you're able to defend that stuff, it's really good. But I don't expect Dricus du Plessis to be trying to go for takedowns. Dricus du Plessis is more of a striker. Interesting name, I understand. This man's from South Africa. So he's someone that, really kind of blew up on the scene out of nowhere. He has only 2 fights. He joined the UFC back in 2020. He knocked out Marcus Perez with a wicked left hook. Right behind the ear, right in that sweet spot that just makes your legs go completely gone. And then for Trevin Giles, same thing. Giles came in, looked like he landed, but perfect counter by Dricus du Plessis, right cross, and then a couple ground and pound shots, and the fight's over. My man hasn't had a few fights canceled. This is going to be his fight in almost a full year, but he was booked against Munhoz. He was booked against Chris Curtis. He was booked against Hernandez and Gaslam, so he's kind of had a string of fights pulled out. Not entirely his fault. I know Gaslam pulled out of his, so it's not like this guy's been trying not to be active. It's more of unfortunate situations. He's had 4 fights canceled in the past year. That kind of sucks for him. And I truly believe he's going to come ready to fight. But the thing is that I truly believe that Brad Tavares is a very good underdog here. I can see Brad Tavares being able to just keep him at range and piece him up, And you look at the people that Brad Tavares has lost to. Literally the top 3 guys in that division for God knows how long. And he fought some of these guys in their absolute prime. He lost to Whitaker when he was on the come up. He fought still like a 36-year-old Romero, For other fighters, that sounds old, but Romero, didn't really start his career till super later, till in his late 20s. So he was fighting a prime Romero, and he didn't get finished. He got ragdolled around a bit, and same with Izzy. Izzy was just piecing him up. He didn't finish him. He does have that, like I said, that loss against Edmund Shabazian, but this is when everyone was high on Shabazian. And Shabazian is a very dangerous one-round fighter. People say McGregor has no cardio. Nah, man. Our boy Shabazian has no cardio. That man is done after 5 minutes. And he just happened to get caught in there. And I don't think we're going to see that against du Plessis. I think Brad Tavares is going to piece him up. He's going to show him that veteran experience that he has. Yeah, they have a similar amount of fights together, but you can't beat the kind of experience that Tavares has had when he's fought literally ranked guys almost his entire career. He has great wins, even going back all the way back in 2010. He fought Seth Bashinsky, not the greatest guy, but Seth Bashinsky's at the time was pretty good. And he's only lost, like I said, to cream of the crop guys, and he's always made guys that you expect to be prospects not look that great. That's why Brad Tavares, even though it is kind of an insult to call him a gatekeeper, but he is the ultimate gatekeeper. So I think Brad Tavares is going to win 29-28. du Plessis is going to have some good shots in there, but I think he is going to be frustrated. I think Tavares is going to be able to keep his composure and show him some tricks that that du Plessis is not really going to be ready for at this time. But I do think du Plessis is someone to keep your eye on. And for sure, he's going to have a career in the future that's going to blow some people away, and he's going to be a top 5 guy for sure. But I don't think so at this time. So, Tavares, 29-28. All right, moving on. Ian Gary versus Gabe Green. Ian Gary's a promising prospect, but I think this might be the most boring fight on the card. Gary had a decent debut. He showed that he's a tough kid, that he can bring it, that he's not going to break under the weather, when you're pushing against him, making it a dogfight. He showed that he's not going to give up. He's not going to quit in there, and he got that first round knockout. His last fight, he wasn't that great. It was kind of uneventful. He did his thing, but he really didn't look great against Darian Weeks. I thought I could have performed a lot better, to be quite honest with you. And it was kind of disappointing to see. He came in as a very hot prospect, someone to keep your eye on, but I don't think he has that it factor like we have with other welterweights, like Shavkat Rakhmonov, like Daniel Rodriguez, like Khamzat Chimaev. I don't think we see that in him. And I think it's going to be a very similar fight against Gabe Green. Gabe Green's a decent fighter. He's 11-3. Underrated, I think. He is a little short for the division, but he is young. He's 29. He's 2-1 in the UFC. Only lost to Daniel Rodriguez. No shame in that. Daniel Rodriguez is a monster. I hope that guy comes back. He had 2 early TKO losses in his career. But that was back in 2017 and 2016. And actually, one of them was to Jalen Turner, who we're going to talk about later in the video. But I do think Ian Gary's going to win it. He's going to keep his distance. He's going to keep his range. Just use his kicks, his straight punches that he's pretty good at. But it's not going to be that eventful. I think it's going to be kind of boring. So the steam train, the hype train, better, is going to slow down for Ian Gary a bit. And I think it's going to be a while before we actually see Ian Gary really fully fledged out to be the star that he could possibly become. Because he does train at a good gym. Sanford MMA, a lot of good guys come out of there. Like Gilbert Burns, Vicente Luque, Kamaru Usman, just to name a few. Michael Chandler, so on and so forth. He's still a young guy, man. So, I'm not worried because he's only 24. He's not going to turn 25 till November. So, literally, no need to rush this guy. He can take his time, and I hope he does. We don't like pushing these guys too soon. But I think Ian Gary's going to win 30-27 in quite an uneventful fight. So this might be the time to take a poopy break, a drink break, a snack break. Do whatever the fuck you got to do, man. All right, moving on. Cerrone versus Jim Miller. All right, this is the old dog fight, the old veterans. The guys with harto colmillo, how the Mexicans like to say. Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller, man. This is a rematch for those of you who don't know. If you haven't been following the sport that long. At 170 pounds, if this was at 155, I would have been leaning more towards Jim Miller. But at 170, I think I got to go with Cerrone here. He's been off for a year. He hasn't taken any damage. That was the biggest thing, right? Taking some of these fights back to back a little too soon. Like, back in 2019, it looked like Cerrone was back, right? He went on a 3-fight win streak, and then he fought Tony Ferguson. Competitive first round, and then he started getting dominated in the second, and then it was a doctor stoppage. UFC 230 in Chicago. I was fortunate enough to be there live. It was awesome. And then he loses to Justin Gaethje. He fights Justin Gaethje only 3 months later. And then he fights Conor like 4 months later. And then Pettis 5 months later. And then the Pettis fight was kind of a dog fight. That's an underrated fight, and on the UFC 249 card. And then he takes a little bit more time off. He doesn't fight. Actually, no, not really. He fights Nico Price 4 months later, I believe. Yes, 4 months later. And another tough fight. It would have been a Nico Price win, but Nico Price got deducted a point for an eye poke. And he really didn't look like his former self. And then this one, he does take some time off. But I'll be honest, Cerrone looked like goddamn shit against Alex Morono. And he got TKO'd. It really looked like one of those moments where he was giving up, just standing there taking the punishment, and it didn't look good. He has been competing in some grappling tournaments, just like Combat Jiu-Jitsu or Fury Pro. He lost those, but that's grappling, and it was against freaking Craig Jones and Joe Solecki, which are really, really good grapplers. Especially Joe Solecki, a really young guy. He's someone to look out for in the lightweight division. But this is at 170, and this is a well-rested, well-recovered Cerrone. He's been off for over a year, 14 months. And he's been active. He's had his Joe Lozon fight canceled 3 times. It didn't pan out. Now he's fighting Jim Miller. And even though Miller's looked good, Miller's only beat guys that I believe that really don't belong in the UFC. He's, like I said earlier, I mentioned Joe Solecki. Joe Solecki beat him in an MMA fight, so Joe Solecki's no scrub. He lost to Vince Pichel. He lost to Scott Holtzman, who Scott Holtzman has proven that he cannot hang with the best of the best. Like Scott Holtzman got KO'd by Gamrot and Beneil Dariush. I can see Jim Miller being able to stick around and beating level of guys like the Nicholas Motos and Eric Gonzalez, 2 guys that he's finished with strikes, like the Roosevelt Roberts and stuff like that. He can beat those guys, no problem. But it's just, I don't think he can beat Cerrone at 170 pounds. A well-rested, well-recovered Cerrone, even though he's old as hell. I just don't think it's going to be good for him. I think Cerrone he has that feeling that it's one of those fights where he's like, yeah, I'm good, I'm well-rested, I'm ready to fight, I want to fight. And I think we're going to see that. So I think Cerrone's going to get a TKO win in the second round, coming via kicks. I think he might actually land another head kick against, because Cerrone beat Miller the first time with a head kick. I think it's going to be another head kick and with some follow-up punches again in the second round. I think Cerrone is going to be like, yeah, give me 2 more. I'm trying to make it 50-0 in Zuffa. Hopefully, not 50-0, have 50 fights under the Zuffa banner, which includes his WEC fights, as well as all the UFC fights that he's had. So it's going to suck seeing both guys lose, because both of these guys are veterans. Both these guys are legends. At one point, both of them were top 3 lightweights in the world. Now we're looking at them like old men that you think it's not going to be that great. But honestly, I think it's going to be a pretty fun fight. So I think Cerrone, TKO, second round. All right. Now to the sleeper fight. The sleeper fight of the card. Brad Riddell versus Jalen Turner. At 155 pounds, Brad Riddell is top 15. Jalen Turner, one of the better prospects. Don't let his 12-5 record fool you, man. Jalen Turner is really fucking good. And I think the reason why Jalen Turner is 12-5 is because that some fights happened a little too soon in his career. Maybe jumping the gun a little bit too much. Some of these fights, especially because he's had 3 losses in the regional scene. Excuse me. And again, he did get TKO. He got TKO in 2 of them. But some of these fights, he's taking them back to back. Literally 2 months, a month in between them, and he was such a young guy at the time. He was so young. He was like 23, 22, taking these fights against like grown ass men. Him not really fully being involved in a gym, and then he found his groove. By the time it was 2018, he strung together a couple good wins, and then I kind of wish the UFC didn't do this, but they threw him in there against Vicente Luque, and he gets utterly flatlined. But then, since that fight, he's 5-1. Only lost to Matt Frevola, and that was more of just a grapple fest from Matt Frevola. Frevola wanted nothing to do on the feet with him, but other than that, Jalen Turner's finished those 6 fights. He finished Kalen Potter in 53 seconds. He beat Josh Kulabau in the second round. And that Josh Kulabau win has honestly aged like fine wine. Josh Kulabau has been 2-0-1 since then. He got a draw against Charles Jourdain. Charles Jourdain is a fantastic fighter. And then he beat Shailene, who just won this weekend, I believe, on the prelims. Last weekend on the Gamrot Saryukian card, and he just beat Sungwoo Choi. Sungwoo Choi is really good, So that Joshua Kulabau win is aging like fine wine. Brock Weaver win, Brock Weaver never that good. Uros Medic is a fantastic win. Uros Medic was 7-0. Uros Medic is now coming off a win, since that loss to Jalen Turner. So he's not like a complete scrub. And Jamie Malarkey, underrated guy, He was 14-4, but you look at the guy he's lost to. Brad Riddell, Volkanovski, 2 of those seriously, you're only losing to Volkanovski, Riddell, and he has a pretty shitty loss against a 5-6 guy, but stringing together 4 wins and loses Riddell, and then lost to Faraziem. Not the greatest, but he was coming in 2-0 with 2 finishes by TKO, and he wasn't doing that bad in there against Jalen Turner, but Jalen Turner, relentless, aggressive, very good movement, very calm and collected. But he's fighting Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell is extremely underrated in my opinion. I feel like this guy doesn't get enough respect. He's a CKB guy. He's one of Adesanya's main training partners. He trains with Dan Hooker, Adesanya, Volkanovski on the daily. Also Kai Kara France. And these guys are on a roll right now. Brad Riddell lost his last fight against Rafael Fiziev, but it's Rafael Fiziev, And guess what? That probably would be one of the toughest fights for Brad Riddell, because they used to be training partners. They used to train at Tiger Muay Thai together, and Fiziev was the striking coach there, And they've sparred together. They've had plenty of rounds together in the gym. So of course that's going to be a difficult fight for him. And Fiziev showed why he is a striking coach. Caught him with a perfect wheel kick in the 3rd round, while Riddell was stepping to the right. But other than that, Riddell has been pretty much flawless in the UFC. Beat Drew Dober in a dogfight. Beat Alex De Silva in a dogfight. Beat Magomed Mustafayev in a dogfight. Beat Jamie Malarkey in a dogfight. And Jalen Turner does have the size advantage, does have the reach advantage. He's a giant man for the lightweight. Jalen Turner's like 6'3" with like 79-inch reach or 80-inch reach. That's middleweight type of frame, Or excuse me, he's 75.5 inches of reach, but that's still like middleweight frame. 6'3", 75.5 inches of reach. That's massive for 155. Riddell's on the shorter end. He's only 5'7", got a reach of 72 inches. But what people seem to be forgetting that his main training partner is Adesanya. You know what Adesanya is doing? Probably imitating Jalen Turner for him. Using that reach, using that size. So I think Brad Riddell is going to surprise a lot of people, and I'm surprised he's an underdog, honestly. I think people are high on Jalen Turner for a good reason, but I think people are sleeping on Brad Riddell. I think Brad Riddell's going to win a dogfight, 29-28. Honestly, this might be your fight of the night, so keep your eye tuned in on this one before the main card starts. So turn on ESPN, turn on ABC, and watch this fight, because this is a dogfight, and these guys are why the lightweight division is so sick. That's why we tune into fights, and this is why we look at some guys, and you're like, damn, that guy's a fucking beast. Like, I want to see that guy's fights from now on. Not just watch the stars, We want to see these up-and-coming guys. We want to see these dogs. And I think this is a dog fight right here. So Brad Riddell, 29-28. All right, moving on. Pedro Munhoz, Sean O'Malley at 135. We all know Sean O'Malley. He claims he's 16-0. You're wrong, homie. You're 15-1. You lost to Marlon Vera, but nothing wrong in that. You've come back. You've won 3 in a row. But you're fighting a beast, man. Another underrated dog. Pedro Munhoz. Pedro Munhoz is my boy. I've been watching this guy for a long time. Long time. He's been in the UFC for a hot-ass minute. And people only found out about him when he fought Cody Garbrandt in 2019. My man was in the UFC in 2014. He'd already been in the UFC 5 years by that point. That's how long this guy's been under the radar. And at the time, he only lost to absolute beasts. Like, he lost to a prime Rafael Sunsao. Lost to a prime Jimmy Rivera. Arguably got robbed against Dotson. Lost to Sterling. Got robbed against Frankie Edgar. And then lost to Aldo and Cruz. It sounds like a lot of losses, but he has a lot of good wins. He redeemed his Jimmy Rivera loss. Knocked out Garbrandt. Knocked out Caraway. Who Caraway had a win over Aljamain Sterling. Brian Caraway was really good. I think people forget about that guy. Smoked Brett Johns, who was one of the hottest prospects at the time. He was 15-1. Smoked Brett Johns. And I think, I'm not going to say Brett Johns ran to Bellator, but I think Brett Johns kind of realized it's like, dude, some of these guys are fucking beasts. Maybe I should go get paid more in Bellator and have easier fights there, because honestly, Pedro Munhoz left that man out on basically on a stretcher, bro. His corner had to carry his ass out there. Pedro Munhoz, super underrated, got a wicked guillotine, got a wicked calf kick, which is O'Malley's biggest weakness. A lot of people think Sean O'Malley's going to get the KO win. I don't think so, because Pedro Munhoz is arguably the best chin in that division. And he's got really good cardio. And he's got decent movement. And I think he's going to try to make it a dogfight with O'Malley. I would be extremely impressed if Sean O'Malley gets a TKO win over Pedro Munhoz. But my mind does think that O'Malley's going to win a 30-27, maybe a 30-26. I think he's just too fast, too good on the feet, and he's going to keep Munhoz at bay, and he's going to do everything that he can to avoid the leg kicks and just use his speed, and just athleticism. O'Malley's a fucking freak athlete for 135. I mean, the guy's fucking 5'11", 72-inch reach. You're fighting at 135 pounds. You don't meet a lot of guys that are 5'11" and fight at 135 pounds and are as athletic as he is, Because a lot of these tall guys look a little dopey, don't look that great. They look very uncoordinated. But I think this is a easy pick for Sean O'Malley. Munhoz is a decent dog, but I don't think it's enough. If this was Pedro Munhoz from 2 years ago, I would have been a lot more confident. But I think Pedro Munhoz is a little more on the tail end of his career, but he is going to make it a dogfight, and he is going to make O'Malley work, which I think is going to make for a pretty fun fight. And, those are the fights that make O'Malley fun to watch, that they push him against the cage. They make him work. They make him, change things up a bit, Because, yeah, it's fun watching O'Malley smoke these dudes in the first round. But, come on, you can't say you were not entertained by that Chris Moutinho fight. And I think Pedro Munhoz is 10 times the fighter Chris Moutinho is. And I think he's going to show that, and he's going to make it a dogfight in O'Malley. And land a couple good shots, but I still think O'Malley's going to be a little too good. And I think O'Malley really is finally hitting his prime, hitting his stride, and going in there and moving up the rankings and finally be top 10 and fight these dogs. So O'Malley, 30-27, maybe a 30-26 here and there from one or two judges. All right, moving up. Robbie Lawler versus Bryan Barberena. Great fight. A little bit of an older dog fight as well. Can never go on with Robbie Lawler or Bryan Barberena. Those boys always bring it. They come to swing and bang. It's going to be an old school swinging and banging fight. But I really don't have much to say because both these guys, there's not really a lot to dissect. Robbie Lawler, 29-15, extremely long career, been fought everywhere. Fought in Elite XC, Pride, No, he never fought at Bellator. Strikeforce. And he came back to the UFC. Won gold, lost it. He's had some ups and downs. Last fight, he beat the shit out of Nick Diaz, a fat, pudgy, out of shape Nick Diaz. That's nothing wrong on Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler came in and did work. Bryan Barberena coming off a fight of the night himself against Matt Brown. Close, tough fight. Barberena showed he still has a chin because he was eating big shots there. And I just think Robbie Lawler is a little, over the hill, and I think we're going to see it again in this fight. I think Barberena is going to win this dog fight. I think he's going to get a TKO in the third round. It's not going to be too bad. I think the first and second round are going to be fucking bangers, but I think Robbie Lawler is going to slow down and Barberena is going to turn it up and get the finish in the third round via TKO. Or this could also be a fight of the night if Riddell Turner doesn't fully deliver, and the bias that they have to more veterans and the older guys that kind of blow the roof off a bit. And by this time, it's going to be a full crowd, so Dana and company are going to probably give that the fight of the night if they do bring it. But I think Riddell Turner is going to be fight of the night. All right, moving on. Oh, I said Barberena, third round TKO. All right, Sean Strickland, Alex Pereira, feature fight of the night. 185 pounds, number 4 ranked. Sean Strickland versus Pereira, just outside the rankings. 2-0, 5-1. You look at that, you're like, man, this guy doesn't have a lot of experience against a guy he's fighting is 25-3. It's a great record. And Strickland has been putting in work in the middleweight division these past 2 years. So, you look at it on paper and you think, well, that's an easy win for Sean Strickland. But people forget that Alex Pereira comes out of Glover Teixeira's gym. The perfect guy to train with. Imagine having Glover Teixeira just push you up against the cage and make you grapple, and just having that 220-pound man just laying on top of you, beating you up, punching you, getting submissions on you. That's exactly the kind of training partner you want for Alex Pereira, who's coming from kickboxing, the middleweight and the light heavyweight champion over in Glory. So he's got elite striking. And why this fight is so hyped up, because Alex Pereira is the guy that beat Israel Adesanya twice in kickboxing, and one of them was by vicious knockout. I do believe Alex Pereira is going to get the KO win here, but it's going to be rough for that first 3 to 4 minutes. I feel like this is going to look a lot like Adesanya's Brunson fight. Brunson charging in, trying to get that takedown, but I think Alex Pereira, with more time with Teixeira, fully being fledged into MMA, wrestling every day, grappling every day, doing jiu-jitsu every day. And I think he's going to be able to hold Sean Strickland off. Sean Strickland, he's that kind of guy that doesn't do anything exceptional because he's not that physically athletic. But he does have amazing cardio because he's a hard worker, and he just knows how to do things right. He's got a very high fight IQ. And people don't give him credit for that because they just hear him spew out all the bullshit that he says, and it's just him being a bit of an edgelord. Even though some of the shit he says is kind of funny, he is a really good, smart fighter. And he doesn't get hit a lot, even though his defense looks extremely strange. People think that this guy's going to get chinned just because he's like, oh, look how he moves his head. Sean Strickland is one of the least hit fighters in the UFC. I don't think people understand that. People don't look at his stats. They just see some of these highlights and what the shit that he said. They're like right away writing him off just because he talks a little bit of shit. So I can see Sean Strickland beating a lot of guys in the middleweight division. I just think Alex Pereira is going to land that left hook because I do think he is a better striker than Strickland. And I don't think Strickland's going to be able to get him to the ground as successful as some people think. So I'm going to go with Alex Pereira by first round KO via left hook, his signature move. And then we're probably going to see Alex Pereira versus the winner of Adesanya Cannonier. But we'll get to that. I'm pretty sure you guys know who I'm going to pick. All right, moving on. Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. 3, the trilogy. Alex won the first fight. Alex won the second fight. All these biased Max Holloway fans need to shut the hell up and know the judging criteria of mixed martial arts. Because everyone brings up, oh, the 2 knockdowns, you knocked him down twice. Yeah, in the first and second round, when the rounds were extremely close. That does not warrant a 10-8 round. That does not warrant a 10-8 round. Those were 10-9 rounds, and they were razor close before the knockdowns happened. Volkanovski then adjusts in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. He outstrikes Max in the 3rd round, outstrikes him in the 4th, and outstrikes him in the 5th, and he had takedowns in the 4th and 5th round. Alexander Volkanovski won an extremely razor-close fight. There was no robbery. You do not know what a robbery is. There are bigger robberies that's happening in mixed martial arts that you guys don't even fucking know about because you guys don't watch the sport. Sorry to insult you guys, and you guys are probably still here listening, but you guys need to learn. And someone needs to tell you that because you guys don't fucking listen to all the Max Holloway stands out there saying that he got robbed, especially the ones that said he got robbed the first fight. He got 50-45 the first fight. He lost. Now get over it because he has a chance to win now. And guess what? I'm picking Max Holloway by TKO 3rd round. Yes, I said that. I don't think it's going to be that close of a fight. Actually, I think the first round is going to be close, and I think the second is Max is going to turn it up. And I think this is going to be the most entertaining fight out of the 3. First fight wasn't really that entertaining, but it wasn't boring. Second fight was a little more entertaining than the second one. But it is very slow. It's very technical, But I think this one is going to be a dog fight. I think it's going to be the most violent. It's going to be the most wild, It's going to be Max Holloway's first time with the crowd again, The fucking fans love Max Holloway. As you can see by the comment sections, everyone saying he was robbed. But that's besides the point. You're going to hear Max Holloway being treated like royalty. The crowd's going to go crazy. Volkanovski's probably going to get some boos. And I think Max Holloway is going to feel that energy, and he's going to really, really show that he's improved. And I think Max Holloway is going to show that with a 3rd round TKO. If not, a 4th round TKO. But I genuinely think that Max Holloway has improved exponentially, as well as Volkanovski. Like, they both have 2 wins in there that they looked absolutely flawless in. Max Holloway nearly murdered Calvin Kattar. He got like 50-42 on the cards. That's crazy. He landed like 450 strikes. I think that's an all-time record of most strikes landed in a fight. Volkanovski absolutely bludgeoned Korean Zombie. So Korean Zombie fans were crying on the comment sections. They were crying. They were literally crying. I see tears when they were typing up because they were making typos and shit. They said they couldn't watch it. They uploaded the fight again. They said, I can't watch this, but I just came here to give it a like because it's a UFC channel and I love the Korean Zombie. That's how bad Volkanovski beat the shit out of a fucking Korean Zombie. These guys are fucking cream of the crop. These guys are levels above the division, and we're going to see that. And it's going to be in a fantastic fight, the highest level of levels. I think Max Holloway is going to come out on top. And I also think Max Holloway is going to come out on top because Volkanovski has been doing a lot of talking, moving up divisions, talking about even entertaining the Cejudo idea. I feel like when you get to that kind of area, that's when the shit gets a little shaky, a little rocky for some of these champions, and they end up losing that fight. I don't think the MMA gods like that. I don't think the MMA guys like that. They get fucking pissed. And that's why they like to bring back order. So I think Max Holloway is going to get the win. I hope he gets the win. I love Volkanovski. I am a Max Holloway fan more than Volkanovski. But Volkanovski won the first 2 fights. But like I said, Max Holloway has time to make it right. And if he gets a finish, I feel like that does kind of put a stamp on things. So Max Holloway, 3rd or 4th round TKO. All right, now to the main event. Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier. I'll be honest, I don't have much to say about this because I feel like this is going to be an Israel Adesanya flawless performance. It's going to be up there with Costa and Robert Whittaker one. Jared Cannonier is very good. I think he would have been far better, and he probably could have been champion if he became a professional 5 years earlier in his career, or he was training earlier in his career, or if he didn't take half his first 8 fights in Alaska, and if he was at a top tier gym from the get-go of his career. because he is an extremely athletic. He is an extremely fast learner, and he knows how to fight for being someone that's pretty old. He's 37, and he's been pretty flawless at middleweight, for the exception of the Robert Whittaker loss back in 2020. But he's beat Derek Brunson, he's beat Kelvin Gastelum, Jack Hermanson, Anderson Silva, David Branch. Those are all fantastic names, man. Those are all great names. And all those guys, when he fought them, they were all ranked. David Branch in 2018 was ranked in the UFC. Anderson Silva was still ranked at the time. He was top 15. Jack Hermanson is top 10 right now. Kelvin Gastelum is top 10 right now. Derek Brunson is top 10 right now. So they're not giving him scrubs. And I'm not really going to look at his other losses because I don't think that's really relevant, because they were at a completely different division. And, like one of his losses was at heavyweight. And then he lost to Glover, Jan Blachowicz, Dominic Reyes. Like, look at these names. Hold on. I don't think Jared Cannonier gets the credit he deserves. Other than his Sean Jordan loss, which actually Sean Jordan has 2 wins over Derek Lewis. Glover Teixeira, world champion. Jan Blachowicz, world champion. Reyes, uncrowned world champion. That motherfucker beat Jones. I don't care what you guys say. Throw in the hate comments. Robert Whittaker, world champion. But I don't think he is good enough to beat Israel Adesanya. I think Izzy is taking the heat, the criticism that he's just a leg kick spammer and he doesn't put on entertainment fights. And I think that's kind of getting to him, and I think he's going to show a more aggressive, more active Izzy. He's going to mix it up a lot more, I think. He's going to show why he's called Style Bender. He's going to try to get to finish, and I think he is going to get it. I think he's going to get a second round TKO, maybe third, because Jared Cannonier is probably going to be patient, but Jared Cannonier is still too slow and sloppy, and even got dropped by Derek Brunson in the first round against Brunson. I think I just repeated myself. But he did get dropped there, and he got dropped in the first round, coming in, charging, kind of being a little reckless. He's not going to do that against Izzy, but I think Izzy is way too quick for him, too tall. I think it's going to go a lot like the Dominic Reyes fight. Dominic Reyes beat the shit out of Cannonier in the first round. He used his size, he used his reach, he used his quicker hands, and, he got him out of there. He TKO'd him. And I think Izzy's going to do the same thing, but he's going to be a little more patient. I feel like Izzy's going to get the range down first, and then once he has it like on lock, he's going to go in for the kill, and we're going to get a TKO win for Israel Adesanya, another title defense, and hopefully, if Pereira wins, we're going to get our next fight booked after that, probably in December, because these kickboxers like to be active, and that's awesome. But if you're still here, thank you for tuning in. Give me a like, give me a comment. If you need anything to improve on, anything that I missed, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Take care. Enjoy the fights. And I'll see you guys next time.